Presiding Officer, our country faces serious challenges that demand serious leadership. But in the past year, we have had a government led by Humza Yousaf with no vision, no strategy and no plan. Not my words, but the words of many in his own party and leading figures across the country. On the two biggest issues facing our country, Audit Scotland has said the First Minister's government has no vision for the NHS and is lacking political leadership on the economy. In the midst of a housing crisis, Shelter Scotland has said the First Minister has no credibility. And as our country grapples with the climate crisis, the Climate Change Committee says the government has no comprehensive strategy and no credible plan. So does he agree with the verdict of the experts that this is a government with no strategy, no vision and no plan?
First Minister.
I tend to believe in the verdict of the Scottish people, who time and time again have trusted the SNP to be the government of Scotland and have rejected Anna Sarwar and his Labour Party time and time again. And Anna Sarwar, who is famed for his hubris, is already putting up the bunting, is already telling people of Scotland that their votes have been taken for granted, whereas this Scottish Government, this party that I lead, will never ever take the people of Scotland for granted in any election whatsoever. And let me say to Anna Sarwar, on some of the issues...
Let's hear the First Minister.
They don't want to hear the record of this government. Let me tell them the record, Presiding Officer, of this government. When it comes to the NHS, of course, we have record investment of over £19.5 billion in this health service. We have statistics this week showing that we have record numbers of junior doctors joining the NHS, Presiding Officer. Record levels of staffing under this government in the NHS. And, of course, Presiding Officer, we are making improvements. We're helping our NHS through recovery. How? By investing in our NHS staff to the point where they are the best paid staff anywhere in the UK. And, of course, what is markedly different in Scotland and compared to Conservative-run England or indeed Labour-run Wales is in Scotland we haven't lost a single day of NHS activity to strike action.
Anna Sarwar.
Officer, record levels of denial and bluster from the First Minister right there. No vision, no strategy and no plan, failing on the basics of government. And this incompetence has consequences. In health, NHS waiting lists have gone up in the past year, with tens of thousands of more people added. On the economy, a complete failure to deliver growth and businesses struggling and cancelling investment. In justice, greenlighting plans to let crimes go uninvestigated and police stations closing across the country. In education, standards falling, violence rising and teacher numbers being cut. And in housing, a cut of £190 million when tonight nearly 10,000 children will go to sleep without a home to call their own. First Minister, this is your record after just a year in the job. How can Scotland afford another 2 years of this?
First Minister.
Presiding Officer, my record in the last year has seen, of course, will see an estimated 100,000 children lifted out of poverty here in Scotland. That record, of course, has seen a record number of junior doctors joining the NHS in Scotland. That record sees the best paid NHS staff anywhere in the UK. It sees not a single day of NHS activity lost to strike action, which is very different this week, where in Labour-run Wales, where junior doctors have once again been forced to go on strike, Presiding Officer. And in terms of the key economic indicators under this government, GDP per head is increased at a greater rate in Scotland than it has in the UK. Productivity has increased at a greater rate per head in comparison to the rest of the UK. And just last month, statistics, of course, showing that we have greater private sector employment growth, better than any other nation or region of the UK. And what is Anna Sarwar's record? The only consistency over the last year, Presiding Officer, is that he is completely inconsistent, U-turned, dumped every single principle or policy and fallen into line behind Keir Starmer, Presiding Officer.
Anna Sarwar.
Even they're feeling sorry for him, Presiding Officer. The First Minister doesn't seem to want to... The First Minister
Let's hear
doesn't
Mr.
seem
Sarwar.
to want to listen to me or to the experts or business leaders across Scotland, so maybe he'll listen to his own side. In just a year of his leadership, 3 defections, 9 SNP MPs abandoning ship and his own deputy leader saying SNP MPs might not turn up to work. He's been called authoritarian by one of his longest-serving MSPs, accused of lacking vision by Kate Forbes, called a commentator not a leader by Alec Neil, and his general election strategy has been trashed by Pete Wishart, his party's longest-serving MP. And in one short year, Humza Yousaf has lost every electoral test he has been set. So is he worried that the people of Scotland, like many people sitting behind him, believe that Alec Neil is right, that the strategy is mince?
First Minister.
Presiding Officer, again another display of Anna Sarwar's famed arrogance and hubris in this chamber, taking the people of Scotland for granted. And he talks about vision. He talks, Presiding Officer.
First Minister. Sorry,
he's getting
colleagues.
support from the Conservatives, Presiding Officer. That tell you everything you need to know.
No, First Minister, if you might say, let's ensure that we can hear one another.
Presiding Officer, when it comes to vision, let me remind Anna Sarwar, it was just last week that his colleagues in UK Labour were praising Margaret Thatcher for her vision, Presiding Officer. In the year that I have been First Minister, Presiding Officer, I can stand here and say that I have stood by my values and my principles. Those values and those principles will see an estimated 100,000 children lifted out of poverty. Those values will see record investment in our NHS, record numbers of junior doctors joining the NHS. They have seen the implementation of a fully funded council tax freeze, despite Labour's best efforts to thwart it. Those values have seen private sector employment grow in Scotland higher than any other UK nation. And as I say, the only consistency Anna Sarwar has is this inconsistency, his U-turning and dumping of policies, from the two-child limit to, of course, the lifting on the cap of bankers' bonuses, and most shamefully, Presiding Officer, is the latest betrayal of the WASPy woman that Anna Sarwar promised to campaign for, and he's now turned his back on. Unforgivable. The WASPy women won't forget, nor will they forgive, Presiding Officer.